We're so excited to be here with you guys today. I'm Deborah Urbanik, and I'm with D. Whitney Consulting. And as we heard from the founder of Awardco, I too share an entrepreneurial spirit. So as Paige said, I spent many years in the recognition industry, really over 20 years in the recognition industry, and loved it. And my work there was really focused on solution design. So how do we plug this in effectively so when our CEO comes to us and says, hey, all this investment, what is it doing for me? We have an answer, right? So that was my objective with solution design, and I loved it. I was a kind of a little bit of a data geek, if you will. But I did also have something in my life that really took a big part of the focus for me. So I ended up moving into this area where I was doing solution design and organizational culture consulting. And as I was doing that, I was traveling all over the world, working with companies much like yourselves. And at the same time, in my personal life, I had a loved one who had a very difficult challenge with their mental health. So that loved one happened to be my daughter, and it made that traveling around the world became very difficult and very challenging. But I knew also I was learning a tremendous amount about what it meant to have a mental health struggle in the workplace and the power of human connection at work. So on the side, I became very involved with the National Alliance on Mental Illness, and I am actually a trained support group facilitator for them, for people who have loved ones with mental health challenges. And I took that training, and I've really integrated the mental health concepts into our work. So as we spend time together talking about hard numbers and ROI, we're also going to be inviting you to really think about human connection and look at your recognition strategies a little bit different. Now, as part of founding my own company, I did do it in partnership with my daughter. So she has a degree in organizational psychology as well. So she's out there on the road with me, and we're working together. But we've also met incredible, brilliant people who have joined us on this journey, and I want to let Ben introduce himself to you now.
Great. Hello, everyone. My name is Ben Cook. I'll be your co-facilitator today. So I've worked with Deb for years now, primarily in the sort of employee engagement, change management, trying to help employees navigate big transitions in the workplace, doing a lot of communication strategies. But most recently, I took a little break from working with Deb to be CEO of a startup that does salary negotiation. So oftentimes it's kind of, sitting on the employee side, it was a little bit of like switching teams, if you will. So we work with employees to help them negotiate salary, whether it's a new offer or a raise. And the really interesting thing about that is it's given me a front row seat over the last couple of years to so many of the trends that are happening in the labor market today, and seeing firsthand that employee point of view, because they come to us and they share, here's why I'm leaving, here's what excites me about the new company, here's why I would never leave my current company. So we're now exiting, which gives me the opportunity to come back and sort of switch teams again. And I'm really excited to sort of share that perspective with all of you, because I think the work you do is so important for keeping employees happy, sustained, satisfied, and productive in their jobs. And I'll just finally also mention that I'm also just such a huge believer that if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. That's something I absolutely brought to my startup. It's something Deb and I have brought to all of our work. So I'm really excited to bring some of that focus to recognition, because I think it really does bring just bring that extra layer of efficacy, like knowing that what you're doing actually is making a difference in employees' lives. It's really exciting stuff. So very excited to be here today, and back over to Deb.
Thank you. So I want to talk a little bit about how we're going to work together today. So you will be hearing some from Ben and I, and we'll be sharing some of the trends and talking about data. But really today is about you all having the opportunity to learn from each other. So there are active exercises that you'll be participating in. We hope that you'll just kind of enjoy and get a chance to know some new people and some new ideas. That's why we sort of strategically broke you guys all up. So you notice that you're not sitting with your peeps today, and that is very intentional. Also, you've got some fun things on your table, and we want you to take advantage of that. So you've got just some what we call fidget toys, so that you can really let your mind go. There's Play-Doh, there's all kinds of cool stuff. So feel free to break into that. And now we spent some time introducing ourselves to you, but we want you to get to know each other a little bit better. And we're going to do that by having you participate in an exercise. So this exercise is called 3 Things in Common. And what we're going to ask you to do is huddle with your table, and you're going to find 3 things that you have in common, but you only have 2 minutes to do it. So when we tell you to break, it's a speed round, and what you're going to do is just start firing off things that you love. And hopefully, you'll come up with at least 3 things. So I'm going to have maybe Ben help me set a timer. And then we're going to say, huddle up, get creative, 3 things that you have in common, and it cannot be that we're talking to or work with Awardco.
3 things in common with all of us, or just with each person?
Nope, you, as a table, 3 things that you all have in common. So think about life. On your mark, get set, go. All right, we're at time. What table found 3 things? You guys did? All right, I'm gonna have you start. What we wanna do is we wanna hear your 3 things, and then if you don't mind, introduce yourself and just let us know, what do you do with recognition at your company, okay?
Wonderful.
Thanings.
I'll say one of the things with each say one.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Shay McCoy. I'm from Paramount. And the easiest 3 things that we have in common, we are all girls. Susan Roy with JP Morgan Chase, and we all like dogs.
Nice. Dogs. Yeah, if you can share, what's your role with recognition? Just really quick.
I lead employee engagement for JP Morgan Chase, and recognition is one piece of that.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'm in the total reward space, and we do our service awards and the peer-to-peer recognition.
Perfect.
Kelly Satterfield with Pilot Flying J. We also all like to travel, and I oversee HR technology and analytics, so I partner with our team member experience for our implementation.
Awesome. And then we can hand the mic back to this next table if you guys would be willing to share yours and follow the same thing.
Hello, I'm Daniel Taylor, work for Lockheed Martin, do total rewards as well. Okay, the first of our 3 was we all like cheese.
That's great.
Matt Ravel here from Franklin Templeton. I'm part of our global benefits team, support our recognition strategy. Our second thing in common was liking the beach.
Oh, nice.
I'm Christy Gilroy. I lead the employee engagement function, employee experience function at Okta. And our 3rd, we actually got 4, I think, but our 3rd was we all like working out.
Excellent.
Hi, I'm Deanna from Pilot Company. I'm on our team member experience team and lead up the rewards and recognition implementation that we're going through. Our bonus was that we're all like a 7 or 8 on the spicy food scale.
I love that.
I'm Tamika Shiller-Boyd with JP Morgan Chase. I am the project manager for employee engagement.
Wonderful. Thank you. I'm going to come right over here.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lindsay Meyer with Trimble. I manage our employee recognition platform under Total Rewards. And the first thing on our list was that we all like pets, or that we all have pets, sorry.
Awesome.
We all like animals.
For animal lovers. I'm Victoria Concio-Llewellyn. I am also with Trimble. I work in the data governance team. I support Lindsay in reporting and reconciliation of invoices for Awardco. So, the second thing we had on our list was fine arts, theater. We all in some way interact with the arts.
Excellent.
And she says interact, so I don't really love it. But my children are in a lot of it, so I have to go. So I'm Christina Gallagher. I work with JP Morgan Chase, and I manage the recognition platform and programs. And the 3rd thing that we all love is sports, specifically like NFL and NBA. So
Nice.
Super excited about all the events we get to do.
I'm Drew Shattuck. I'm from Boston, Massachusetts. I've been with Zillow for about 3 weeks now.
Wow.
I think we only had 3 down there, but family is also important to us. So.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Laura Shanley, and I'm at Okta.
And I was brought in to help with the recognition strategy and implementation of the new program. And we all like comedy, and one particular fun one is 30 Rock.
30 Rock. I love it.
I'm Marie Keppel. I'm a CLO from Seattle. I do sales compensation within the company, but then we also run all the recognition platform items with Awardco. One of our others was that we also all like dogs.
Nice. Dogs are so popular. Everybody loves dogs.
Michelle Martin, Paramount, and the Total Rewards team. And we all like to cook. That was a third one.
Nice.
So that was great. And we love the Play-Doh, by the way.
Yay.
You can't make anything.
Yay for the Play-Doh. I love it. Thank you. That's great. I just have to know, how did you get to cheese?
It was top of mind.
All right. I love that. All right. So we encourage you, you're hearing roles that are similar roles that you play with some other people from different companies. So please take time during breaks and everything. If you're not sitting with somebody playing a similar role, go talk to them and learn about some of their best practices. That's what today's all about. So what we're going to go through today is we are going to start by thinking a little bit about recognition and how we measure and why it's important to think about what we're measuring. And then we're going to kind of dip into, well, what are we missing? Are there things that we should be paying attention to today that we're not? Then we're going to take a minute and get our geek on. And we're going to have our data analytics gurus from Awardco come up, and they're going to walk you through a little bit of a download on measurement. So we can kind of get in the mindset as we think big picture of how analytics might help us to have better conversations with our leaders. And then we're going to come back from that and play a little bit of a game after, and there'll be a few prizes to win, so we'll do that after. And then we're going to come in and talk a little bit about some of the cultural challenges that Ben and I have observed as we've been doing global travel with our clients. And these cultural challenges are things that are exciting opportunities for us to think creatively about how we're using recognition. So we'll come back from that, do an exercise with you to start to spark some ideas on your use of the recognition towards some of these new challenges. And then we're going to go in and hear a little bit about a great case study that Awardco has worked on. And this is something that's really exciting with how they're really able to show the true impact of recognition on a very key employee data point. So we'll hear from them, get a chance to have you guys ask questions, and then we're going to put you back to work a little bit more to have you start to think creatively about how to embed appreciation more effectively into your employee journey. So we've got a lot to do, and we will be taking a break in about an hour, but we do want to let you know that at any point, if you need to get up and refresh, please feel free to do so. And I do want to give you a moment now because there is delicious food in the back waiting for us. So if you want to load up a plate while we're talking with you, we want you to eat and be comfortable. So please feel free. We invite you to dig in, bring your plates in, and we'll get started. Okay. Please feel free to keep eating, but we're going to do dinner and a movie here. So we're going to do just a quick video. But as we were thinking about, really starting to think about ROI, we wanted to step back and start to think about what are we measuring and the power behind what we're measuring. And this video, some of you may have seen this before with Simon Sinek, but it's a great example of really starting to be mindful about the outcomes and also the impact of what we choose to measure and how it can make a difference in how we're affecting the employee engagement. So we're going to do about 3 minutes of Simon, and then we're going to get in and talk a little bit more about data.
The metrics that we have are not wrong. They're just incomplete. Right? The standard metrics that we have to measure our own success in our companies, profits and revenues, EBITDA, whatever you want to use, and the standard metrics we use to measure our own wealth, there's nothing wrong with those. They're just incomplete. That's like saying, when I chose to marry her, she's really good looking. Important. And is she a good person? Does she bring the best out in me? How is she in times of stress? Like, will she look after me? Will I look after her? Will she let me help her? In other words, there's more to it, and it's the same for businesses. So what I'm learning to do is to understand those balancing metrics. So I'm now very interested in things like momentum. right? Where I want to measure momentum as much as I want to measure accomplishment or sheer numbers. So, for example, the traditional way in which we measure, this is really funny. This is an inside joke you won't get. Can I have that pad, if you still have it back there, please? Or not, never mind. There was a whole debate before, I don't need the pad, I don't need the pad. And they said, well, keep it here in case you need it. I'm like, no, I don't need it. No, I need it. Anyway, I'll just do a visual thing. So the way we traditionally measure success is we give someone a goal, right? We say, meet this financial goal. And then what we do is, you're the best. So here's what we do. We give somebody a financial goal, we say, hit that goal, right? And what we do is we don't know how they got there, right? They beg, borrow, and steal. The morale on their team is, if they're doing well, it's high. When they're doing badly, it's really low. They can't hold on to employees or team members. They keep quitting or getting fired. And it's kind of a mad dash. And then on the right day, on the right time, they hit the goal, and we give that person a bonus. There's another person who's building a team. Morale is really good all the time, whether it's good times or bad. Performance is not crazy highs or lows. It's just the steady growth. The team gets along great. And at the end of the financial year, that's where they end up and they miss their goal. We don't give that person a bonus. And so what I'm starting to pay attention to is momentum, right? And how we got somewhere. Clearly, this person's going to hit their goal in 16 months or 17 months. But to the rest of the organization, we told them, don't do this. We told the rest of the organization, do this. So what ends up happening is we are incentivizing behavior that's actually bad for the organization and bad for the team, because we make this the end-all be-all. So what I'm considering is not just were they able to hit the goal, but how's the momentum? And in reality, I want not to give this person a bonus, and I want to give this person a bonus because whatever they're doing, I want them to do more of that. Because in long term, this is way more valuable to my company than this.
That conversation about momentum is an important conversation for us to think about. Because with recognition, if we look at what we have been measuring historically, if we look at what we've been measuring historically, a lot of the metrics are really telling one story. But when we come to telling our CEO, our leaders, how we're making a difference in the organization, there's another story that we might need to start thinking about. So, traditional recognition metrics. I'd love to hear, what do you think is one of the most common recognition metrics? Yeah, retention. Retention is a great one. Retention is actually a really good one. But what we see most often, right, is how many people gave recognition, right? So we see a lot of people will say, okay, one of the metrics I have to report is I know for sure how many people gave recognition. And I also often know for sure how many people received recognition, right? So historically, when we look at recognition strategies, the metrics that people used to always be able to report because they were the metrics we had available were, are we using it? Are we reaching the employees? Are our senders satisfied, right? So can they use the tool effectively? And are our recipients satisfied? Those are important measures. We want to know these. We don't want to walk away from that. But there's so much more when you think about what recognition does that we need to care about. Like, for example, retention. Like, is it really making a difference with people wanting to stay? Also, are we thinking about the things that we're recognizing? We know, as we looked at your data, you all took the time to fill out a survey, that right now, just like what we were just talking about, we still find that here in this room, most often, we're looking at how satisfied are employees with the tools that we have. We're also looking at our usage metrics, just like what I described. But we also have some people who are starting to reach more deeply into their metrics and start to explore being able to show impact in a more powerful way. So are we seeing changes in voluntary turnover? Are we seeing employee engagement survey being affected? So for example, are we identifying questions in that survey that are really strongly tied to recognition? And are we seeing that when people are recognized more often, we're getting that score to bump a little bit? And then finally, employee productivity and absenteeism. And I would love to hear, because here we are, as you can see, on the lower end of our threshold, the least used. But if you think about going to stand in front of your executive team and say, how are we making a difference? Do the executive team want to know this as much as they want to know that? What do you guys think? Right? So I'd love to hear from those of you in the room, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but it would be so interesting to hear, how hard was it to get started with being able to measure absenteeism, being able to connect it to voluntary turnover? Is anyone willing to take a pause? Thanks.
So for our team, we measure, utilization of the platform, all those things is how we measure the effectiveness of Awardco. But we do look at, and I brought my analysis with me, but we look at all of those things, productivity, absenteeism, all those things. And we use our EOS, our Employee Opinion Survey, as a measure. And prior to launching with Awardco, our satisfaction with recognition was 65%. After launching it, went up to 82%.
That's great.
So
that's amazing. Very nice. Nice job.
But I do think it's a continuing story that we have to tell.
Absolutely.
And get managers to understand that there's importance in making sure that when people are doing a good job, you're recognizing them, because then they're going to get the business results that they're looking for. So for those folks that are analytical, that only want to see the numbers, you've got to show them in a way that's going to make sense to them versus all of us who know that it's important because it's table stakes. Like, you should make people feel appreciated. Not everybody sees it that way.
Thank you.
Sure.
Perfect. And I think when we come to really getting people to adopt recognition and get our leaders to start participating more in recognition, it's these kinds of stories that are going to get them to engage. So we need to do a better job of being able to uncover those types of stories in our data. So we want to think about, what opportunities are we missing to think about the impact of recognition? And so to start thinking about that, we want to go up to the 10,000-foot view and think about challenges. What kinds of challenges are cultures facing today? And as we got ready for today, you all completed a survey, and you told us what some of the things that you're most concerned about are. Starting with high turnover. We know we're in our great resignation, and I know that's something you guys are probably eating and sleeping and breathing right now. Low or decreasing employee satisfaction, that quiet quitting. And honestly, I feel like I'm experiencing this, so I travel all the time, and when I go into hotels now, I feel like half of the population is quiet quitting in hotels. They don't care as much. It's a different experience than it used to be. DEI concerns, difficulty recruiting, psychological safety, which is a huge topic, and I'm excited to share a little bit about that in just a minute with you. Employee well-being, growth and change, cross-functional collaboration, and internal communication. These are all things that we're seeing as challenges today. And what Ben and I did is we kind of went back over our recent culture assessments and looked at your challenges, and we've brought in a few examples, a few studies to talk about some of the key things that we're seeing most often as we go out and work with companies. So I'm going to turn it over to you to kick off that.
Yeah, so great resignation, right? That's kind of the headline. That's what is on everyone's mind. It's all over the news. I put it on the slide. But I want to kind of pull back a bit from just that headline thing, right? What's behind that story? Why are we in the Great Resignation? And just kind of, if you take a look at the macroeconomic labor market, it's been a crazy time. Right? There has never been just a confluence of disruptions that have impacted employees' lives. I mean, of course, we all know them, right? We all did a work from home experiment, or we were frontline workers and suddenly we were heroes, but then we were just right back to work. Some of us could work from home for forever. Some of us were parents, and working from home meant the daycare was closed and that whole nightmare, right? This is, coming out of that and then going straight into booming consumer demand and then inflation. It has been a wild period of disruption. It's sort of like the greatest experiment that has ever been run on the workforce, and it happened overnight. And for the last 2 years, we've all been grappling with what are the implications from running that experiment. And so the headline news is that a lot of workers are quitting. And of course, right, so this goes back to you can't manage what you can't measure, right? So what do you measure, right? Well, you measure that people are quitting, and when they quit, they get higher salaries. So that's great news for the business I'm selling right now, right? People want more money, yay, let's get them more money. But if you actually dig in and look at what's driving people to quit, it's not more money. Yes, they get more money. Yes, most workers will change jobs if there's a substantially higher paycheck. But what's driving them to look in the first place? What's driving them to consider it? There's an amazing McKinsey study that says that is not primarily about just the paycheck, right? More and more and more, right? Employees value that feeling of belonging, appreciation, recognition. There's a amazing Forbes study that showed that among workers who don't feel appreciated in their job, 66% are looking for the door. Actually, among millennials, it's 8 in 10. So behind the story of the Great Resignation, there is a massive, massive shift in the way that workers are thinking about their relationship with their company. And I actually want to give 2 sort of examples of this. And an old professor of mine used to beat into our heads that the plural of anecdote is not data. But I hope that this is useful for you. So Riva, right? What we do is we coach people through, that's the company that I run. What we do is we coach people through a salary negotiation process. We've done about 5,000 of these. We have a really good sense of what is top of mind for people when they're switching jobs. So I want to talk about people going for a new job, and I want to talk about people asking for a raise, because they're a little different. So when someone's looking for a new job, right? We want to build their leverage with their new employer. We want to get them as much money as possible. So what's the best way to do that? Well, get their current employer to make a counteroffer, try to retain them, right? Create a bidding war. That's what we do. We're negotiators. So many of our clients refuse to even entertain it. They are like, I will not give my current boss, I will not give my current company the satisfaction of even believing they could retain me, because I am so burned out. I am doing the work of 4 people because my company is so short-staffed right now. No way, nothing would get me to stay, which drives us crazy because we want to, create the bidding war. But it's really remarkable, right? It is like time and time again, our coaches will come and be like, there is just no way to get our clients to take the step of trying to be retained. On the flip side, someone asking for a raise, right? This is someone who wants to stay at their company. We do the exact same calculation. We say, hey, great. Well, why don't we go find you a competing offer, and you can bring that in, and your company will say, oh, well, we're not paying you a competitive market rate. We got to increase your salary. So many of them say, absolutely not. I love my company. There's no, I wouldn't even consider looking for the door. It would feel dishonest to even think that way. I'll give an example from my personal life. My wife is a software engineer. And it's been a great time to be married to a software engineer. It's a red hot labor market for software engineers. And being a negotiator, right, I try to encourage her, oh, this is great, go go get more money. I want to spend it, I want to take a vacation. But her company, for example, happens to pay for her lunch every day. So it's this little credit that they get, it's $15, she can spend it on a sushi lunch, she loves sushi. And every single day, she's like, oh, yay, my company bought me lunch today. That adds up to about $5,000 that they give her. And I swear to you, she would not entertain an offer from another company that didn't buy her lunch, even if they paid her $15,000 more. Because every single day, she has that feeling of, my company loves me. My company bought me lunch today. Right? It's those personal connection moments that are so critical. So when you think about these massive forces transforming the labor market, when you think about this headline of the Great Resignation, right? If all you're measuring is, oh yeah, employees are switching for more money, that's all you'll know how to manage. But if you really dig in and pay attention to what matters for employees, it's belonging, it's appreciation, it's recognition, it's knowing that my company sees me, values my contributions, and this is a place that's a home for me. I have human connection.
And imagine when you hear that, when you think about people who are craving that kind of connection and are also burned out, imagine those people not receiving any appreciation. So it's that time when making sure that are our leaders utilizing our tools that they have available and really holding them accountable for that, especially in this moment, because it makes such a huge difference. Oh. Where did it go? So the next trend that we want to talk to you about is this idea of personal purpose at work. By show of hands, I'm just curious, when you use your recognition strategy today, how many of you align it to your values? Right? The majority of us. Anyone align it to competencies? Okay. How many of you help your managers to ensure that when they give recognition, they're connecting it to the broader company purpose? That's something that is an opportunity that's growing so much more powerfully today. So when we think about giving recognition, we need to think about, are we building a bridge in that moment to letting that person see how the work they did contributes to that overarching, that greater good of the organization? And the reason for that is because we are observing a trend where more and more employees today come into the workplace and they want to connect their own sense of personal purpose to the company's purpose. So much so that when they are missing that gap, it is actually becoming part of a reason for thinking about, maybe I don't want to stay here. It is also becoming a larger part of the reason people choose one company over another. When they're looking to say, employer A, they have a great offering, they do great things, they gave me a great offer. Employee B, they do great things, they gave me a great offer, but they do good in society too. They do good in the world. They're choosing company B. So if we are not thinking about how we're connecting people to their purpose, it makes a significant difference. And I want to talk to you about this study. There's a Harvard article, and we're going to give you these articles as part of your takeaway, so you have all of this information. But there's this great Harvard article that is about a company called Wipro. And there was a study done at Wipro because they're an organization that is actually a person who does call centers, right? So their organization, they do a lot of call centers, they do chat, phone, all that. They could not get their customer care score to go over 60%. Customer satisfaction was just stuck. So they did a study, and they figured out that they broke this group into 3 groups. There was a control group that had no change to the way they were connected with. So they looked at sort of like, how are we onboarding the talent that comes in to do this customer service work? And the first group, they said, we're going to keep it the same. We're going to just tell them how to use the tool, and we're going to tell them what their role is. The second group, as they onboarded that group, they had the leaders come in, and the leaders stood in front of them and said, these are our values. This is what we stand for. This is our purpose. And you are here to become a part of that. Join us in that. And then the third group, the leaders came in onboarding and said, tell me about yourself. What are your strengths? This is our purpose. These are our values. How do you see yourself connecting here and bringing that to life? And they followed these 3 different groups for 6 months of activity. And what they found is that first group had 0 change in their outputs. So their customer satisfaction score stayed the same, and their quick quit rate stayed the same. The second group, where the leaders went in and said, this is who we are, come join us, that group actually had a 14% decrease in the quick quit rate. And they had a 5% increase in their customer care score. But that third group, where they actually took the time to start to get people thinking about how do I connect to purpose, they actually decreased their quick quit rate by 32%. And they increased their customer satisfaction rate by double digits, 11%. So it makes a difference, and it's a huge opportunity. And it is one that as we think about the recognition strategies that we're working with today, if we're not training our managers to start to get people to think like that, to build that bridge, we've got a little bit of a gap that we can solve for. So I'll hand it over to you to talk about the next one.
Yeah, I actually want to add just one another example from Riva on this. So we talk to workers right when they're in the middle of the interview process, and they're considering, should I take this job, should I take that job? And yeah. vast majority say purpose is really important. But you know what they don't do? They don't read out the purpose statement of the organization. They don't know it, right? Most employees would struggle to articulate, oh yeah, these are, and, you know, we all spend so much time trying to craft exactly the right purpose statement. What they do is they say, this came out during the interview process. The employees that I talked to at that prospective employer, they told me about the sense of purpose. So when it comes to that feeling of yeah, my work here really matters, your employees are your best messengers. They're your most credible messengers. And activating them with things like recognizing when they do behaviors that are aligned with your values, that's the way that you can get them to start to really bring that to life at those moments where it matters the most in terms of attracting and retaining talent. So I want to now talk a bit about back to sort of macroeconomic trends in the labor market, right? So again, huge experiment, right? Remote work. This happened all of a sudden in 2020. We all went home, and surprise, a bunch of people absolutely loved it. I'm one of them. I will never commute again. I'll fly out to Salt Lake, absolutely, but you are never getting me back on the New York City MTA every day. And a lot of people feel that way. So there's an just crazy study out of Stanford this past June that looked at the non-compliance rate for companies where your boss says you have to be in the office 5 days a week. It's 48% of employees are not complying with mandatory return to office policies. That's, remote work is not going anywhere. And actually, this is interesting too. 42%, I believe, of managers faced with that problem are just throwing their hands up. They just ignore it. They say, you know what, I don't want that person to leave, so it may be mandatory, but I'm gonna look the other way. So remote work and hybrid work is here to stay, right? This is just a fact of the labor market today. But as employers, this raises some challenges, particularly when it comes to what we've been talking about, right? Human connection. So among workers who are remote, 72% say that they aren't able to socialize enough. That's a huge number of people who are feeling really isolated, who are feeling that lack of human connection. Right? 33% say they express feelings of loneliness. They genuinely feel like they are lonely, sitting at home all day, every day. I mean, thank goodness I have a dog, or I think I would feel pretty similar. So when it comes to keeping people engaged, keeping people feeling connected, keeping people connected to purpose, that sensation of true human connection that comes from feeling like someone sees you, they recognize you, they value your contributions, that is so much more important when you have this kind of remote hybrid experience. And in fact, there's a study, much more recent, this was a couple weeks ago, of C-suite executives, and 75% say they are actively worried today that employees are going to walk out the door because they don't feel connected enough. So encourage you all to, again, think about what role recognition plays, those moments where you feel immediately seen, right? Someone saw what I did and they're recognizing it, they're rewarding it. What role does that play in helping foster human connection in a world where 33% of your employees are lonely? So, back over to Deb.
And I'm just going to add a real world example of this too. An onboarding strategy for a global pharma that I'm working on was facing some challenges with early quick quits. And we started looking at how do we make people feel more connected. And recognition is an awesome excuse when you go through the onboarding process and you see someone in that room that you're like, I'd like to keep talking to them. Reach out to them, send them an e-card and said, hey, I noticed all the great contributions you made in that session, in the onboarding, in the orientation. I want to stay connected. Use recognition to start to ignite relationships. And that's so powerful with remote workers as well. So making sure that as we're communicating about that, we're making sure people are aware that that's a tool that will help them to build bridges to other human beings, right? And open up conversations. And I'm quickly going to go through this last trend because this trend is so interesting to me. I'm just coming off of a very large organizational assessment, a culture assessment that took me all over the world. So I was in the UK and Slovenia and Thailand and Japan, and we were talking about challenges for culture. And all across the world, elements of employee psychological safety were coming out. Now, employees don't know how to say it. They don't say, oh my gosh, I'm really struggling with psychological safety today, right? They don't know how to say that. But what they're saying is, I care about how I'm treated. And they are caring more today than they have in the past. I feel like there's an increased sensitivity to, am I being cared for? Am I being respected? Do I have a sense of permission to make decisions for myself? There's a lot of ingredients to psychological safety that we're seeing have been affected by, I think, COVID has raised up our sensitivity to, is this happening in my experience today or not? We know that when people feel safe to be curious, to ask questions, to step forward and lead out, and to challenge their leaders in healthy ways, we see innovation and performance, and we also see people being willing to connect with people who are different from themselves a lot more often. So there's some huge value in it. But when we think about what we're appreciating, and we think about how, we are building psychological safety at work, there's some things that we often are missing as opportunities. I'm just going to give you another just kind of real-world example. One of the global study was an engineering company, and they create lasers. And there's a lot of value in getting it right. So they go across the world, they're doing this work, and people make mistakes. If you're going to be innovating and you're going to be pushing technology to the edge, you're going to make mistakes sometimes. But the culture in this organization was so anti-mistake. If you made a mistake, it was something that there was a lot of shame, et cetera, around. People were afraid to step forward. Innovation was slowing down. People were not willing to take on new projects. So I'm telling you that because when we think about the idea of failure, oftentimes we associate that with blame and shame. But the truth is failure, especially when it's driving innovation, pushes us forward, and it should be a learning opportunity. So making that loop back to recognition, if we are not being mindful and making time to say, are we learning from our mistakes and celebrate the things that we are learning, or that fail fast type of approach, are we celebrating that enough within our organization? That's something we need to be mindful of. So there's lots of opportunities with these big challenges, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to actually invite our local geek to come up, Chris Nash, to talk to you a little bit about data, and then you guys are going to, at your table, think about how can you use recognition to solve for some of these key challenges we just did. So we're going to get you working together right now. But first, Chris is going to come up and get his geek on. Thanks.
Thank you. I am a local geek, I guess. I did not come up with this slide, but I embraced it with all my heart. So I hope you're ready to get your geek on. I didn't have the suspenders or bow tie. I did get the pants ending a little short. So I got the style going a little bit. I'm Chris Nash. I'm the Vice President of Operations at Awardco. I've been here at the company almost 4 years now. So it's been a really awesome experience to see the company grow and to see the evolution of our product in the space that we're in. So I have a background in engineering, so I figured there's no better way to get our geek on, as the slide says, than to start off by talking about a concept called multipath signal interference. Simply put, in a wireless communication system, you have a transmitter that sends the signal, and you have a receiver that will receive that signal and extract the information. Now, the concept of multipath signal interference refers to the fact that when the transmitter sends the signal, you'll have the direct path to the receiver, but you also have the signal bouncing off of reflecting objects, such as buildings, mountains, bodies of water, cars, objects if you're inside of a room, whatever that may be. It bounces off those objects and then makes its way to the receiver. Hence, the receiver not only receives the signal from the direct path, but also from these other paths, hence multipath. And so, this is very problematic, right, in the engineering world. These signals can interfere with the system trying to extract the data, extract the information. I imagine all of us in this room have probably experienced the negative effects of multipath signal interference to some degree. Whether that's, maybe this is probably a long time ago, but when you would see duplicate images on a TV that you're watching. Or if you're using a GPS and you notice that it's bouncing around or it's not showing your location accurately. Or a radar having false detections. Or simply put, I'm sure we've all experienced a signal dropping out, right? Or weakening in strength. Those are the negative effects of multipath interference. So, how do we solve it? I got my graduate degree in electrical engineering, and much of my graduate work revolved around answering this question: how to solve for these negative effects of multipath. And a specific use case where this is important is ground or air-to-ground communication. So an airplane, right? Or remote drones or remote missiles. You can imagine the importance of having a really robust communication systems for those use cases is extremely important. And I had the opportunity to go to Edwards Air Force Base a handful of times to test a system that we built for this use case. We would have a plane would actually fly and transmit a signal to our system, and we get these reflections off of mountains and buildings. And our system would take in all of that data, the direct path and all of these reflected paths, with the whole purpose of analyzing that data in real time, doing real-time data analysis and signal processing, using statistical tools such as correlation and prediction and all of those methods. But the objective was to output the desired signal, right? Mitigate these reflected signals that cause problems, mitigate the bad, out with the bad, in with the good. That was the whole point of our system. One more example that maybe you can relate to a little better is noise canceling headphones, right? I'm sure we've all maybe used those at one time or another. All they are doing, they have little microphones built in that are listening to that outside noise. And then there's a system, a processor in those headphones that will take that data, right, that outside noise, process it, do data analysis, signal processing, using some statistical tools such as correlation and prediction and those type of things again. But with the objective to output the exact signal that has the exact opposite of the noise, to hence cancel it out for you. It's really interesting, and relating this to you now and your companies, these delayed multipath signals that cause problems, right? This unwanted noise with those headphones, those are the culture challenges that you're facing at your companies. Those can be the great resignation, the quiet quitting, the poor or low retention rates. It can be bad internal communication. The cells aren't doing very well. Messy, broken internal processes. Maybe the company feels a little siloed, not really unified, right? Whatever those culture problems you're facing, those can be represented by those unwanted delayed signals or that unwanted noise. So just like in engineering, how do we account for that? How do we solve that problem? Well, we build a system that analyzes data. And the whole objective is to output, to mitigate those bad things, the noise, right? And to output the desired objective. Similarly, Awardco can be that system for you, right? Awardco has a lot of tools to help listen for that noise, listen for those delayed signals. There's a lot of valuable data sitting in Awardco that is just waiting to be analyzed. And that's what we're here for. We want to partner with you. We want to help you analyze this data to accomplish whatever your objectives are. And that's where it all starts. So how do you do this? Measurement success factors. Identify your desired outcomes. So for example, increase engagement. That could be a desired outcome. Next, determine your key success factors. How are we going to achieve that outcome? Well, in this example, we'll focus on Awardco adoption rates and recognition rates. And then we start with a small sample and some control variables, and then we let it run. We let it run and we observe the impact, right? We need to set our base. We need to understand where we're at, and then let's implement some programs that we can run, and then let's reevaluate later on. And then we can compare, and then we can get awesome stats like the one you shared earlier, right? That's where we can get at these numbers. And for those that really want to prove the ROI with numbers, with data, that's what we can get to. That's the outcome we can achieve here. So a couple I mentioned in my, in those systems we built, we would use some statistical tools, right? Well, we can do those same things here. Here's two examples of really popular ones that we would use. The first being correlation. So what is correlation? It's trying to, and sometimes these can be hard to distinguish, but correlation attempts to quantify the strength of how two variables relate to one another. Okay, and so here's a few bullet points. It can be positive or negative correlation, or no correlation at all. The variables can be interchanged. So two examples are when I see more recognition, I also see more productivity. When I see more recognition, I also see lower turnover. On the other side, you have regression analysis. This is more where causation is explicit. One variable will cause a change in the other variable, allowing you to actually predict things. It's more of formulated by an equation. And so some examples here, I can predict that giving more recognition will increase productivity. I can predict that when I give more recognition, turnover will decrease. These are some of the methods that we want to partner with you to do, to help you analyze your data and get that ROI that you're after. I love Awardco. I love rallying behind the message of recognizing the good, doing good things, being even better. I love that when we speak to ROI, we speak to something that can be truly behavioral changing. And I truly believe that. And I'm really excited to come talk with me, come talk with my team. We're here. We'll be up at the Sundance dinner tonight. So if you want to get your geek on a little more, come chat with me. But thank you so much.
Thanks, Chris. We're going to take a 5-minute break. So everyone stand and stretch. And even if you don't have to use the restroom, walk around a little bit. But please come back in 5 minutes. And we're going to put you guys to work for a few minutes. Okay. We're going to go ahead and get started again. And what I'm going to invite you to do is take out your smartphone, or if you have a tablet with you, you can go ahead and on your tablet and log into www.kahoot.it. And we're going to play a little game together. And there will be prizes. As you log in, you can choose to log in as yourself, or if you want to remain anonymous, you can just make up a fun name. And I don't know if the QR code, it might be a little blurry for that. But go for it. And feel free to come up if you want to. And let us know if anyone's having any trouble. Yes, Awardco guest. The password is Awardco guest. All lowercase. Anyone stuck? Okay. Who has not logged in? Okay, don't worry, it's okay. We know some IT guys here. What's that? 2 more? All right. Who's still struggling? Anyone need a little help? Almost there. Yes? Think we have everyone? All right. Okay. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. And if you couldn't get in, then don't worry. You can just lean over to the person next to you and you can make a team. Be all set. Okay, so here we go. The first one is going to be just to get you warmed up so you're used to using the tool. Okay, the best pet. I think after our 3 things in common, we know the answer to this one, but.
Deb is a proud chicken owner.
I am. See if we have any chicken fans in here.
There we go.
You are? All right. Never meet other chicken owners. All right. See, we are dog lovers. And you didn't own up to your chicken.
I really like cats.
Yes, it's okay. Yeah, same.
We won't tell you.
We won't. Okay, now, here's one that gets us into the recognition subject. Okay, so Deloitte cited the companies spend over $46 billion a year on recognition. What % of them do not measure success? All right, 9%. The true 87% do not measure success. Isn't that, so it kind of gives you guys a chance to pat yourselves on the back because a lot of you guys are measuring success, which is great. All right. Now, KSAT is in the lead, and Jamie and Michelle are following close at your heels. All right, let's do the next one. This one is a multi-select, so you can pick more than one response to answer it correctly. It says correlation of 2 factors is able to show us. Can you all read all the responses? Do you want me to read them? The red is that one factor causes the other. The blue is that there is a relationship between 2 factors. The yellow is if one factor rises, the other factor will likely rise. And the green is if one factor declines, the other will likely decline. All right. So the answer was all 3 of these. Let's see how this did as far as a scoring impact. See how we're doing. So Daniel took the lead. All right, we're going to see. We've got a little head-to-head here going. Ready? The next one, is this true or false? Employee engagement, productivity, and performance are 14% higher in companies with recognition than those without. What do we think? Right, it's true. It is absolutely a huge impactor on engagement. And I think, honestly, one of the ones that gets underutilized and under-touted, right? We need to make sure that we're bringing that to the forefront and making that work for us as much as possible. So that keeps Daniel in the lead, and KSAT is right behind. Oop. Another true or false. Regression analysis allows us to predict the impact of an independent variable on a dependent one. See if you remember from getting your geek on. Right, all right, so yes, absolutely. That is where if we want to be able to say, if we do more of this, this will happen, we can predict it. We want to get into getting a little bit into the regression analysis side of things. And then, we're going neck and neck. Let's see what happens next. As age of a person increases, the quality of their eyesight decreases. This is an example of the truth, right? Can you read the responses? Red is positive correlation, blue is negative, yellow is regression analysis, and green is all of the above. All right, it is an example of negative correlation, right? We have a relationship, and when we see one go up, the other goes down. But it's a relationship, it's not causal. Okay, let's see how we're doing. Okay, you're holding on to the lead. All right, I want to predict the extent that recognition will impact our employees' sense of belonging. That would be a correlation question. A regression question is blue. Yellow is an impossible question. And green is both correlation and regression. All right, the answer is it's a regression. Anytime we are able to say with confidence that we can predict, we want to have that benefit of regression analysis. Okay, here we go. Matt took over. All right, this is a big, important question. Here we go. True or false? Scooby-Doo was first produced as a cartoon about a rock band with a bongo-playing dog. Is that true or false? All right, good job. Yep, it's true. Gotta love Scooby, gotta love the bongos. Let's see how we did. Okay. Our third place is Daniel. And Daniel, where's Daniel? Daniel, you get to go in the back and grab a prize. Good job, Daniel. All right, our second is KSAT. Who's KSAT? Woo, all right. Go ahead in the back and grab your prize. And then Matt, where's Matt? All right, Matt, good job. Amanda's got some stuff for you guys to choose from. Nice job. All right, so see, you were paying attention. You did great. We had to geek out, but we had to have a pop quiz too. You can't do that without the other. So now we are going to actually have you guys go to work for a little bit. So this will be a chance for you to share ideas with each other at the table. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to do an exercise where Ben and I are going to hand out some worksheets. And we recapped on the worksheet some of the challenges that we shared up here. And at the bottom of that worksheet are 3 questions about the challenge and how we might want to apply recognition to it. So it's a chance for you to kind of think about what you're doing today, maybe learn from each other about your practices, but also maybe ideate some new ways of thinking of applying recognition. So we're going to give you about 10 minutes at the table for you just to come together and think through the answers to those questions. And then while you're doing it, we've got whiteboards here, we've got sticky notes, all kinds of things for you to work with. So feel free to map it out on the board and then select somebody to be willing to speak for you. And it could be just, you could all take turns speaking about it. But what we want to know is how would you respond to these questions? And again, use it as a chance to think about your current practices, but also what might we want to do? How could we get creative with recognition and start to think about it a little bit differently? All right, so we're coming around with the worksheets, and you can huddle around your whiteboards. And it is by table, so just stay with your table and go work it out.
So you all have brainstormed, you all have done your exercise. can I ask if any group would like to go first? Yeah? Okay. And when you do, everyone had different topics and different questions. So just read out, let everyone know what your topic was, the questions you're answering, and take it away.
All right, ours was psychological safety. Can you guys hear me if I don't use this? No? Yes? Okay. Ours is psychological safety. So in what ways does your recognition program support psychological safety? We said we've got some e-cards around like technology and things, so when you're taking risks and you get recognized for it, we thought that was an indicator of supporting psychological safety. We all said we probably don't do enough though, because the idea of failing fast, we would never recognize someone for that. Like, even though we say it's okay to do that, nobody would feel good about it and nobody would recognize for it.
Yes, and if you are not currently using recognition to improve psychological safety, how might you start? And we were saying like getting the leaders involved and having all the managers recognize their team definitely helps like give people reassurance and help them move forward on whatever they're using.
That's great. Who wants it next?
Can I add just a thought with psychological safety? The idea of fast failure, if we think about that, and I'm just going to do like a conversation around that. So if you're, say, for example, in the pharma industry, failing fast is really important because the more long it takes us to realize it's not working, the more investment we have. The way to have a great failing fast or, I made a mistake conversation is to turn the recognition to say, we just had this, guys, we all acknowledge this thing kind of went off track. If we're in the pharma industry, we're going to say, because we realize this now and because Joe made such a difference coming forward, telling us the data didn't look good, really sticking with it, that is saving us X number of dollars, right? So that's a great conversation. If it's just like a screw up, but we learned a really important lesson as a department, I would suggest actually recognizing the person to say, listen, we're all in this together. Nancy over here had an issue. Nancy, do you want to share what happened and what you learned from it? And let's all really acknowledge that. And thank you for being so honest and owning, we had a misstep, but we learned something really powerful from it. So like teaching managers to start to shift that dialogue is really important. And psychological safety recognition for things like encouraging curiosity, right? Like are we teaching managers like, hey, it's okay to be curious, it's okay to ask questions, recognize those people who are the ones raising their hands all the time, right? So instead of defining it fully, just starting to think about those smaller conversations we can have about it. So just wanted to add that. But go ahead to the next team who grabbed the mic.
Okay, I think that's us. Our team had remote work and human connection. We did get to the questions, but it brought up, I think, a lot of ideas and discussion for us because return to office is a pretty juicy topic for us, for everybody. So the first question was, how has remote and hybrid work changed your employees' feeling of connectedness? We talked about the concept of trade-offs. So, it's easy to say that working from home can be isolating, and of course there's all these benefits. With respect to connectedness, we talked about how it's more difficult to connect, things are more organic in the office, but when we're intentional and actually put in the effort to connect with somebody and have the half-hour catch-up, it can be a deeper connection, more insightful, you actually learn more about the person oftentimes, it's a more private setting, not everybody's listening to your conversation. Things like that came to mind, which we thought was interesting. And different profiles of employees are thriving in this new remote or hybrid environment. People that thrived on their organic office setting, struggling, whereas those that might have been a little more shy or reserved in the office might be taking advantage of that more structured, intentional kind of connection system. So the next question was, what role does recognition play in fostering connection at your company? We talked about how it can be a tool to facilitate that kind of intentional connection. What else did we say on that one? I'll just go to the next one. So the next question was, how are you measuring connectedness today and how you know it's improving? We talked about how some of our programs have tags or values where employees can say, this recognition is with respect to building relationships. I think you all mentioned other kind of similar tags in your programs. So that's one way to measure. I know for me, I was kind of reflecting on that, thinking there's probably some untapped opportunity there to kind of better measure connectedness. Does anybody want to add anything?
We said it helps a lot with our global employee population. I think Tamika mentioned comms, leveraging comms, and really calling out the superstars and teams that use it really well, and so creating kind of some positive competition.
I was also asking the group about the feed. So the Awardco feed, I think, is a great place. You can see all the good things happening in the company on one page, no matter location or role. But I also think, at least for us, there's probably some untapped potential there. Like, how can we better leverage that to create more value out of the program?
That's great. That's great. Thank you. I would maybe ask you all. I loved what you said about intentionality, right? Like, it's so much harder to create connection in so many ways, but it also is sort of this opportunity where you have more of these like delineated moments of connection, right? If everyone's in the office, like, yeah, you just connect because you chat around the water cooler, or you go grab happy hour drinks after work. Now there's this opportunity to say, like, no, this is specifically, we're delineating this as human connection time, as bring everyone together, as team cohesion time. And when you talk about measurement, that's really exciting, right? Because then you can say specifically, hey, our hypothesis was that if we do a team offsite, then this metric will improve. And you can actually see, right? Deliberately, did that idea work? Did that idea not? I love that. Thank you. Which one of you two groups wants it? Take it away.
Thank you. We had personal purpose. So many of our recognition solutions ask employees to align appreciation to evaluate your competency. How does your company move beyond this practice and connect employees to organizational purpose? We started out as a group trying to remember what our organizational purposes were. We didn't get there. So we've got some opportunities. The kind of first question, though, we thought through maybe an activity on how folks' personal purposes align to the broader kind of organizational purpose. And then going into the second question, if you're not currently using recognition to connect those dots, how could you? And we thought maybe rewarding that activity with some points on the recognition platform. And then lastly, how do you know if you're succeeding? And we talked through productivity, retention, and engagement.
Excellent. I have a quick question for the group too. This is really a newer trend, so there's probably the likelihood is it's probably not happening very much, but I'm just curious, in your coaching guides, so when you're guiding your leaders to coach, are they being coached very often on connecting, helping the employee to make that connection to purpose? Is that part of how we're building that sort of tool? Are you seeing that in your companies, just out of curiosity? If you are using it, I'd love it like a raise of hands. We're guiding our managers to build that bridge today. Okay, we are. Okay, good. And are you guiding, so they have sort of coaching prompts that they go through, and some of those coaching prompts are?
So we build it through our OKRs. We're supposed to tie it, or the employee goals, like tie it directly to the company purpose.
Perfect. Great. And I just think that new layer of opening up that door to get to know the employee a little better, what their strengths are, their unique strengths, and what they're trying to do with their life too, and bridging that conversation in coaching conversations could be so powerful. So just was curious about that. Great, thank you guys.
That's also a great opportunity to use recognition, right? If that's the manager behavior that you want, you can recognize managers who are doing exactly that, connecting the dots behavior, and then encourage everyone to do the same.
And it's just going to become more important as this younger generation comes into the workforce. That's why we like to emphasize it now, because it's on people's minds, the younger generation. Go ahead.
Ours is on the Great Resignation, and I just wrote it on here. The first one was, how does your company foster culture and connection to lessen the impact of the Great Resignation today? So one of the fun things that I thought was great is they have a connection to the executive team. So they send out regular communications, right, especially for the work from home people, right, so that they feel connected to the leadership and what's happening. One of the other groups says they have a weekly stack coffee break, which I love, because it's not just talking about the business, but really kind of connecting and getting to know each other, so you can kind of bring up any subject. One of the things that we actually do, and we started doing this year, is we found we do a huge
annual Employee Appreciation Week, but we found that people really want appreciation all the time, right? So what we started doing is like quarterly nudges is what we call them for managers, to kind of give them different ideas, or just to kind of be like top of mind, right? Hey, have you done this lately, right? Whether that be using Appreciate or just going by and saying, how was your day? Thank you for what you do, right? And then a new hire mentor program. So I thought this was really great. So they have a program where when new hires come in, they have somebody like to kind of help them navigate, right? The new things that are happening. We do something similar where we send out cards from Appreciate, which I kind of love because they know what Appreciate is. So click on it. The second question was, if you're not currently using recognition to solve the challenge, how might you start? I think we're all kind of using it. Some of the things that they said we've additionally done recently, one of the groups was tie hashtags to core values. So like having those items in the recognition, right, so that you actually see how it connects to the purpose, right, for the company. And then one of the things that we also put is awareness campaigns. So know about the recognition programs that exist, and then why you should be using them. So explain to people why they actually should be doing this. Not just because it's something to tick off, but really, you know, what is the purpose behind it? And then 3, we had, how would you know you are succeeding? So we kind of felt like this was some of the stuff we've already talked about, but it's really cool that we are all doing it, right? So recognition survey scores, are those going up? Do you have something specific in your surveys that ask about recognition, and can you see the change? Compared to attrition rates, which we talked about, and then one of the companies is doing something currently to tie into turnover rates. So looking at people that have left and seeing were they recognized or were they not, and is there a correlation to that?
That's so powerful. That last one, just, you know, this idea that we're actually looking at people leaving and saying how often were they appreciated. And if we have a low number there and we're seeing those quits go up, that's a huge indicator.
Yeah, I love that. That's like, you know, going from just saying, oh, well, we all know recognition is really important, to saying, can you tie that specifically to the business imperative, right? When you have to report up the key metrics about quick quits and attrition and turnover, right? If you can tie those things directly, that's where, you know, you get a lot of really, really positive impact. So on that vein of measurement, an exercise for the group here. So we all just shared a whole bunch of different ideas and current initiatives and ways that you might navigate all of these cultural challenges that we talked about using recognition, right? Of everything that you heard today, what felt the most measurable? Maybe something from another group, anything that really stood out to you as you're like, yeah, I could see how you would really connect the dots there. Anyone?
Oh, I think the Thrive, having the executive coaching use the recognition tool.
I love that. Yeah. Using recognition inside the coaching, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. What else? Anyone heard? Yeah.
Well, the last thing she said about using, like measuring the amount of recognition people who have left, that just really blew my mind. I'm sitting here thinking about that.
A great opportunity. Yeah. Great opportunity.
I love that. We're blowing minds. That is what I'm measuring today. But anyone else? Anything stand out as like particularly measurable, or maybe even something that's really challenging to measure? Anything maybe in your own group, or yeah?
We kind of were discussing that one of the things that's really hard to capture is productivity. We're trying to measure that, even though it's something that companies really want to measure, and tied to recognition is really hard.
Yeah. We'll connect it back to the remote work experiment, right? Like when everyone went home to work in COVID, productivity spiked. 2020, productivity rates were through the roof. And then 2021 came around and productivity across the map plummeted, right? And that contributed to a lot of the Great Resignation stuff, right? Really, really tricky, metric to kind of disentangle from all the other things that might be going on. I love it.
Can I add a point to that? With the productivity, this is something, we had a large insurance client, and insurance clients tend to have a lot of great data, right? So what we did is we started to build a justification to grow recognition. We actually started where we knew we had awesome data. So in most companies, there's some areas that measure productivity much more than others, right? There's some places like your customer service groups, they've got lots of built-in metrics. So don't hesitate if you're trying to build a business case to start small. Like find a group that has quality data that you know is reliable, you can go after it, and then grab that great analytic geek to come in and say, how do I get my utilization to really bump up against this? And that will tell an amazing story and help you to grow and expand the measurements. So don't hesitate to start small as you're building your business cases.
Yeah, just to echo, right, this is what Chris was talking about, right? Start with a small sample size, get really reliable data, and then you can extrapolate that and expand that as you roll off across the organization. You know, I think measurement is really just about like having a clear hypothesis, right? If we do this, what will the impact be? If we roll out this recognition program, if we start to recognize this behavior, what's that gonna do? And so I think when you start thinking about these challenges, right, that's a really good spark to have in your head, right? Say, okay, macro, high level, we're really concerned about finding purpose at work, or our employees keep resigning, or we're really struggling with remote work, right? Okay, what might make a difference, and how would I measure, how would I know if that behavior, if that thing, that initiative is starting to actually have an impact on those core bottom line metrics that we're all assessed by? And I think trying to sort of, nudge us to start thinking in that way is a great way to make progress against, some really, really challenging cultural trends that are going on right now in all of our workplaces. So, great. Thank you so much, everyone. Yeah.
Just a question. On our poll that we did, you said 86% of companies don't measure the impact of recognition. Why is that?
A lot of them don't have reliable data or macro data that they can take advantage of. That's what I find is the most common, especially if you're dealing with a global company and they may not even have all their HR systems all fully aligned yet. So it really is, do we have data that we can rely on is oftentimes the biggest challenge. And that's why we're like, start small, because you know where you can control it.
That's definitely our biggest issue. We went through mergers and
yes.
we're on our third name.
Everyone's acquiring people, right? Yeah, it's like
so our systems are not integrated yet. It's a big, big mess of trying to get there. So I mean, we try to put a lot of non-data information out there, the employee feedback and manager feedback.
And I don't want to minimize, the recognition, knowing that we can go to leadership and say, we've got this utilization, we've got this reach, we're spreading it across the organization, that's powerful, that's great data, and that is like table stakes. Like we want to make sure we have that, but like starting to dip our toes into that more, where we can tell deeper stories data will be really powerful.
Yeah, well, it's, imagine, right, the conversation one is, hey, recognition is, taking off, right? Like people are adopting it, that's great. Okay, cool. So what? What does that mean, right? But if you can combine that with even just a small sample that says, hey, and where we were able to measure it really precisely, that improved, quick quits, that improved our attrition rates, that improved our sense of well-being and appreciation, right? Being able to tie those two together, it's a great way. It's a good conversation to be able to have with, with the managers. So.
Awesome. Perfect. Awesome, great job. Give yourselves a round of applause. That was really good. Thank you for digging in and sharing. And now what we're going to do, speaking of people leaving organizations and the impact that our recognition systems can have, we're going to invite Nick to come up and to share a case study that Awardco did that built that relationship. So I'm so excited for you to hear this because I think this is an awesome example of telling a great story with data.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. So one thing that I feel like a lot of companies have the opportunity to do, like we've said, start small, and this is something that we've done with one of our clients where we started small. Specifically, one thing that they were worried about was their turnover. Right? They wanted to see how recognition can improve, help reduce voluntary turnover specifically. And so we partnered with them. They actually provided their turnover data, a lot of details broken out by region, by country, by tenure. And And here are just some highlights of some of the things we found, right? So, and before I dive into the specific insights, just a reminder about correlation versus
Regression.
Most of this is correlation, right? So I want to make that very clear up front. It is the what in a lot of ways, but at the same time, there's that next step of the why. And I think a lot of what this has done is it started to spur some, conversation, some discussion about, why this may be. And so just looking at some of the highlights, we did see that of the two categories of employees, those that stayed versus those that left voluntarily, we did see that 9% of those that stayed, employees that stayed received 9% more recognition than those that left, right? Again, this is correlation, not necessarily causation. We also found that employees that do stay, again, compared to that population of employees that left, those that stayed tended to log in to the Awardco platform 21% more often than those that left, right? And this last one, 6 RPU. RPU is recognition per user, right? So looking across the board at all Awardco clients, we see that those clients with an average of 6 recognitions per user annually tended to have a 13% lower turnover rate. Again, correlation, not necessarily regression. But we just found that interesting, right? So as we think about this, what are, I guess I want to make this a discussion, like what do you think are some of those reasons that may be drivers behind some of these insights that we found?
People that feel valued are more likely to stay than people who don't feel like they are valued or appreciated.
Yeah, people that are valued feel more appreciated, more likely to stay, all else equal, right? Any other ideas?
I think personally, being recognized inspires me to recognize. So if I'm not getting recognition, it doesn't necessarily feel like a carrot for me to recognize someone else.
Yeah, absolutely. So I like that a lot, where it's almost like a positive cycle, where if you're recognized, again, all else equal, you're probably more likely to recognize, and that helps create and foster that culture of recognition.
I think logging into something like a recognition platform is an indicator of a few things. One's engagement. If you're not engaged, you're not going to bother. Another is balance. If you're overwhelmed or burned out, you're also not going to bother logging into something like a recognition platform.
Yeah, absolutely. Something like engage or just logging in, right? Usage, that's a very, very basic metric and very easy to measure. But there are some potential implications there, engagement and workload, right? If you're just swamped, you're doing the job of 4 people, you're not going to, frankly, have as much time, or if any time at all, to even log into recognize, right? So that's a good call out. Any other thoughts?
Question, is it monetary or non-monetary recognition, these numbers?
So this client, they do both. They have like non-monetary peer-to-peer spotlight program. They also have monetary component as well.
And do you have the business case that gives the breakdown of monetary versus non-monetary?
I can speak to that a little bit. I know, so with the non-monetary one, they do have, or basically anyone can recognize it, right? So it's company-wide, globally. With the monetary program, they do it somewhat, in some ways similar to the way we do it internally at Awardco, where every employee has a specific number of points. I think they do it, I want to say every 6 months. And then they have to get bucket points to get that, right? And they're encouraged to do so. So this obviously is a super high level. This is across the board. We didn't break it down into specifically looking at the non-monetary versus the monetary. But that's definitely something maybe worth diving into as well.
Kind of along the same lines, but do you find that if the value of your points are higher, that you see more recognition or more engagement? And the reason I ask that is like ours are not very much. Like you have to get a lot of recognitions to have much to be able to redeem. But I don't know that what we find is it's just recognition in itself. It doesn't matter that it has points or it doesn't. it's that feeling of someone noticed that I did something good. So I don't know, for us at JP Morgan, it's not the number of points that I get, it's that someone recognized me.
Yeah, we do find that there is a difference between monetary versus non-monetary. Excuse me, I should have taken the cough out. But there is, statistically speaking, there is a difference between monetary and non-monetary. But to your point, even with non-monetary, it definitely can help drive that culture, foster that culture of recognition, that sense of belonging, feeling valued, feeling appreciated. Within the monetary spectrum, again, I haven't personally looked at the data, but I have seen studies that show that there's not that significant of a difference from the amount, right? There's like diminishing returns, like the more you give, like yeah, there may be a marginal effect, but it's fairly minimal. I think the point is that people are being recognized. Yeah. Any other thoughts or questions?
Did you guys also look at the same metrics for those recognizing versus receiving recognition, giving recognition?
That's a good question. Brandon's not here. Yeah, okay. Brandon from our data team is the one that actually ran this analysis. I think we did look into that. Again, these are just the high-level insights. But yeah, I believe we did look into that. These were just the ones that stood out. Yeah. And then we haven't talked about this bottom half yet, but one thing that we found interesting was recognition disparity, right? So within, those two categories of employees who stayed versus employees who left, we found that within the first year, right, if people left within the first year, then that recognition disparity was only 3%. Whereas once you get into years 2 and 3, it was significantly larger. Any thoughts on why that might be the case?
I mean, I know from our recognition scores that, new employees are excited to be there and jazz, and that starts to decline. I think like 18 months we have an inflection point, so I would just guess it becomes more important the longer people are there to get that recognition.
Yeah, absolutely. I think within that first year, there's just so many other factors, right? Again, going back to correlation versus regression. If someone's going to leave within that first year, I think it depends a lot on the industry and the company and things like that. But there's generally going to be a lot more factors beyond just recognition that may drive someone to leave. Whereas once you get into that second year and beyond, there's a little bit more stability in a sense compared to those that have only been there for a year. Any other thoughts? So this is just an example of like a fairly simple study that we did, and it's something we'd love to work more closely with all of you and all of our clients to do, right? So we do have a data team that can help run some of these analyses, and we understand that every company has different priorities, and so whereas with this one, it was relatively easier to get that turnover data, if there are other metrics that y'all are already measuring very closely, like productivity, engagement. I think many, if not all of you, are writing some sort of employee engagement survey. We'd love to be able to partner with you more closely and compare either correlation and or regression analysis and look at the impact that recognition can have on some of those metrics. So, thank you.
Thank you. That's the kind of stuff that I know data can't always be exciting, but when you start to see stories build up about this, it's amazing to see the impact that this work actually has on employee bases. And I would just suggest too, one of the things you can do coming out of this session is we are going to send, as I said, the challenges that we gave that data. But stop and think about, what are you most challenged by today? And are we looking at all at data that could help tell stories about that? It's an awesome opportunity to stop and reflect and say, do we have, take a look at your engagement surveys, take a look at other data points that you might be collecting today. And companies are collecting data in really cool and amazing ways today. Are we using it and thinking about how we might be able to build some relationships that are different, that are answering the questions that we're really, that are burning issues that we're trying to solve for? So, what we're going to do is we are going to have you guys go to work one more time, and this one is going to be a little bit more movement, a little bit more kind of energy, and a little shorter question, so that'll be good for you at the end of this session. So we are going to be thinking about, how do we make sure that recognition is really embedded into the employee journey? So is it a program that stands on the side over here and, hey, everybody, don't forget we got this cool recognition tool, use it, put it to work? Or is it really coming to life? Are we thinking about how we're talking about it through talent acquisition? Are we thinking about it as we're bringing new talent into our environment? This is a chance to stop and think about, how can we start to make this pay off a little bit more and bring recognition to be really part of day-to-day work? So what we're going to do is we're going to do an exercise where we explore the employee journey through the lens of, are we putting recognition within this journey, where it's going to be part of that experience. And I'm going to give you some examples. So the employees come in. The first thing we're trying to do through talent acquisition and onboarding is we're trying to establish belonging. Are we using recognition effectively to do that? Where does it show up in that part of the onboarding experience? And then once they come in, we want them to start contributing, right? We want to build their psychological safety. We want to get them to be active contributors. So is recognition being used to not only enhance, but be a part of our coaching systems, our performance management? Are we looking at that? Are we building any accountability around appreciation? And then as we achieve and we grow, are we using our cool recognition data that we're going to start growing more and more to start helping us to identify top talent at the organization, or to start thinking about promotion? Are we using this great rich data on what people are really getting honored for to help to feed those kind of decisions? And then as we come out and we get people to be those active contributors, they move into this phase within their employment where they want to start giving back. So this is where you find those employees who want to be your ERG leaders, your champions of new initiatives, right? They're the ones who raise their hands and say, what can I do? We want to have more and more employees start being those nurturers of culture, the ones who carry our culture. Are we using recognition to help to get those people who are really, they're in it, they're part of our company, they're the ones who are getting us through our day-to-day, and they're the ones who stand up? Is it really being put to work to make sure that we're keeping them ignited and excited? And I love the question that I think it was Kelly asked earlier about, are we actually using our data studies to look at the people who are the givers of the organization too? So are we connecting them and really getting those people who are helping to keep our culture growing and moving? So what will we ask you to do? What we're going to do is we are going to have you at each station. We're once again going to hand out some worksheets. We're going to start, and at your first station, you're going to be looking at one phase of the employee journey that I just went through. And you're just going to answer a couple of questions. The first time you're at the station, you're going to actually spend about 10 minutes answering just 2 or 3 questions. And then once you're set, we're going to call the 10-minute time, and you're going to go over to the next phase of the journey. You're going to look at what your peers wrote, and you're going to add to that and say, or you can challenge it and say, nope, I disagree, that's not a good idea, we want to do this instead. So you are going to use the boards, if that's okay with you, just to get your ideas captured, and then move around. We're going to sort of do a round robin to finish this work. So once we get through the first 10-minute, it's going to be 5 minutes at a board, 5 minutes at a board, and we'll go quickly through. Okay, does that make sense? All right, so you will randomly start at some phase of the journey. It's not going to be in order for you. So what we'll do is we're going to pass that out right now. If anyone needs to pop out for a quick break while we get you set up, go ahead, that's fine. And we'll get through this exercise, and then we're going to, again, have you, at the end, you'll come back to your original board, and as a team, you'll put together sort of that story on that board and share it back. Okay? We'll get you set up, but go ahead and take a quick break. There's refreshments at the back of the room if you need some more to drink. Okay, we are going to come back together, and we're going to start at our first journey point where we are establishing belonging and think about talent acquisition and onboarding. And as Ben mentioned, we are going to be capturing the boards and sending you the ideas that you're creating together so that you can use them down the road. Okay, so I'm going to offer up the mic to whoever wants to walk that through. Great.
So to start, embed into the EVP, employee value proposition, talk to candidates during the interview about that belonging and recognition processes, sharing employee stories and company-wide videos, I have one on there. Many companies do onboarding surveys and making sure award completion is part of that. Welcome recognition award points to a new hire and a buddy. This is one of those things that we do. We call the Z-PAL program because everything is Z-branded. But our new employees are assigned a buddy to help them learn about company culture, and they each get 15 points in Awardco just to spend. Came from when we were in the office and everyone got Starbucks cards to go downstairs and have a coffee together. So
nice.
Match employee experience with similar interests. I think that was another Zillow one. We have it's almost like an internal Facebook page, but once you select your things that you like, we have insights, which is kind of like DISC or personality type test. You can click on it and see everyone else in the company with your same order that are very similar to you.
That's cool. That's very cool.
So add questions, scoring. That's a scaring for a minute. It's I don't think you're supposed to scare candidates. An interview with your values, purposes, recognition, having an iPad during the new hire sessions. I don't know who wrote that one, but that'd be interesting. Integrate recognition into Outlook, portals, Slack, Teams, whatever's going to make it easiest to find. We have not done that yet with Awardco, but it's on my very high to-do list because we are interested in that. I think it makes it easier it is, the faster it'll happen. Make points available for giving from day one, I think is also important.
Yes.
Points to choose from company swag. I do like that we have swag features available. I mean, everyone has new employee loves swag. It's probably around that 7-year mark. Everyone's like, no more swag because I have too much. Charitable redemptions, tying in the company values. Something like that one, that's good. And then package that shows not only benefits, but company activities like volunteering and perks and everything. So, yeah, I think those are all great examples.
That's awesome. Thank you. Great job. I really like the idea of storytelling early, as far as storytelling during the actual interviews and storytelling about what it looks like to succeed here early, because when someone is trying to establish that first level of psychological safety, that feeling of belonging, one of the first things they want to know is, how do I fit in? And if you can share what great work looks like here in stories, that gives them a clue of, well, this is what they like. This is what it means to succeed here. So I think that's a great example. I'm going to bring it back to this table to talk about our next step on the journey. Anyone? Anyone?
else want to do it?
So exercise 2, we had activate contribution. So the first is, what are some of the best-in-class ways to bring recognition into coaching conversations? So we put time to performance development reviews. Employees use them as a part of development conversations, as well as different systems like Slack or Outlook. Managers discuss good as well as opportunities. Use numbers for performance conversations or call out the different things that they've been recognized for. 2 was how do you bring recognition into the employee's day-to-day work habits? Create a culture of recognition. You can do it from top down, so that your managers are using the tool, like we talked about, inspiring others to then send to other people as well. Highlight peer-to-peer recognition. And then we had 3, what communication practices do you use to reinforce that all employees should make recognition a part of how they collaborate with others? So highlight in public forums, town halls, meetings. I like this one, I've never thought about like digital platforms, so if you have digital things around your office spaces, team meetings, using system tools to call out others. So different things that people use in different companies, Teams, Slack, IM, Symphony, Outlook. And then number 4, I'm not really sure about this one, someone added it, so the CEO on the platform. So I thought that was interesting, right? So maybe, I don't know if they're like necessarily sending things, or like we're putting messages on them about our purpose and values that they can showcase and see.
It was just a big win when we saw our CEO was going on the platform and commenting on recognition.
That's
a super strong thing there.
so powerful.
That's so cool.
We don't have to. You borrow our CEO, you would borrow.
No, I think we would. Yeah, because we have so many people, we haven't figured out a way yet to have that public option, right, where you can comment and things like that. Because today, if you opened it up, because we have so many people, you would automatically see 240,000 other people's. Yeah, it's a lot. It's overwhelming. Yeah. So that is the goal, though.
I think it's so powerful, though. I wonder if there's ways to use the technology so that the CEO should be using it to award people, give points, be active on it, and maybe highlight some stories around that so that you make that visible, even if you can't blast out where he or she could comment on everything. Right. Okay.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, by the way, it can be filtered down in a variety of ways now. So like a person could.
Yeah, we're trying to figure out how to do that. There's a lot of groups, businesses.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is definitely a goal.
Something that entered my mind too as you were talking was the idea of encouraging people to give recognition. And I think when you're a new employee or even somebody who's a frontline employee, sometimes it is hard to give recognition because you feel like, am I making myself bigger than I should? That I'm actually saying to this person, like, you did a good job? Have I earned that right to give recognition? And I think making sure that when you think about how you're communicating around appreciation, that granting that permission loud, clear, and setting it as an expectation during the onboarding phase as they come in is really powerful. So I just want to share that because that is, I think there's a lot of people who are hesitant because they're like, well, I can't recognize him. He's like, everyone knows him, and if I recognize him, who am I to do that, right? So make sure that people have that clear permission.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, talk about when someone is onboarding, you give them some points, like right from day one. They can thank their onboarding manager. They can just thank that nice person who got coffee with them. That is such a great way to just set that culture from the beginning. I also wanted to pick up on that point, right? So I loved what you said, right? The CEO joined the platform and suddenly adoption spikes. So what triggered in my head, right, is that's an interesting measurement moment, right? Okay, CEO joins, adoption spikes. So does that mean that if we get other senior leaders, adoption will spike more? Right? That's where you can start using those small batches, right? Say, okay, well, when the division head or this business unit joined, then that business unit started using it more. That's a really cool way to sort of build in those small batches. Yeah, sorry.
I want to tie the two things that you guys just said together because the reason why the CEO went on is because someone else gave him a recognition. So he went on and saw that recognition and he commented on it, and then he went back through and commented on every recognition he ever received.
Wow.
And then he started seeing other recognitions and commenting on those. So to your point, right, like if you're enabling people and encouraging them to go recognize, and then that is like the snowball effect.
I love that story. That's very powerful. And I love that somebody was brave enough to say, I'm going to recognize the CEO. That's awesome. That's a good sign for your culture, too. Yeah.
Know what they say in the recognition.
I'm going to hand this off to this group if anyone wants to.
I can do it. I can't see it, but I'll move it there.
We need a spotlight that way.
All right, so we had Achieve and Grow, so top talent, identification, succession planning, and promotion. So the ones that came up over here, recognition is a visible data point during reviews, and a little more specifically into all performance conversations, so quarterly, annual, things like that. A manager checkbox of recognition reviewed during review. Manager checkbox of recognition, basically an acknowledgement. So, hey, we see that you've been recognized, and we're signing off on that, or at least that we've seen it. Tie the systems together, specifically HRIS and recognition systems. An employee PDF of all the recognitions, and then if you take that kind of a step further, employees sharing that with their manager. That did lead to some conversations about like how is that not come off self-serving sometimes, like how do you teach employees so that, and that's part of your culture and that's okay to do. Some other things that came up, I guess other people have talked about like brag reports where that's like part of the company. And it's okay to do that and share those things. So that's one way to do it where it's kind of more built in. Use channels where people can share feedback and recognition. So questions came up like what kind of channels, you've got the social feed built in, but other people talked about leaderboards and different stories like through communications and stuff like that, internal communications. Recognize the recognizers, so the culture champions, and make sure that you're bringing them out and putting more emphasis on them at the platform. And then integration to performance management system, which we kind of hit back there at the top as well. That's it.
How many people have a culture where you're trying to get employees to own their own career development more, right? By show of hands, yeah, that's such a huge trend now that, and it's almost like creating a sense of a talent marketplace, right? I make my skills more visible, and then I might be invited into this cool project so I can self-develop, right? I can do project-based development, I can engage in other ways, but it means that I have to become more visible somehow. Recognition is a huge opportunity for that. So I love this idea of creating a culture where we have a brag culture, right? That we make our good work visible and setting that tone with employees, because otherwise, how are people going to know that I've got this cool skill or that I can stand out this way so I can be pulled in and do some self-advocacy and self-development as well?
And just to add to that, right? When it comes to attrition, turnover, great resignation, right? This is, again, like Riva's world, right? If employees aren't able to brag about themselves and their accomplishments inside the company, very quickly what they're going to do is they're going to go brag about their accomplishments and everything to a competitor who's trying to poach them away, right? So the more you can foster and develop, like I love those ideas because those are so specific about embedding them into career progression. Like, yes, bring that brag sheet PDF of here are the moments of recognition I got during the year, bring that into the performance review, and that is such a huge step to feeling like I'm recognized, which if you remember when we were talking about great resignation, like that is almost more important than salary, right? So love that. That was
awesome.
Great.
Get a recap of all these.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Definitely. You guys are sharing some great ideas to bring home and work. Who wants it? It's mic aversion.
All right, so we have the last one, which, so this is engaged leadership, mentoring, and volunteerism. So this is like the end, because someone that's been there a while is mentoring others. How do you inspire them and keep them kind of in the culture? So we have recognize, let's see. Recognize culture champs, mentors, ERGs, leaders, and volunteers through your recognition system. I had brought up, like, when we think about budgets, right, could we think about reallocating some of the budgets that we use for gifts to our recognition platforms? A lot of times, whoever said, like, that 7-year point when you're like, oh, we're going to have, like, 54 tumblers. Could you reallocate that budget now to your recognition program so that employees are able to go get what they want, but you're still recognizing the tenure and their want to like help others? Cross-collaborating with exec coaching program, elite awards, so using your elite awards 10 per year, we talked about like ethics-based awards, those types of things going through your recognition system. One of the things we talked about was like, I think one of the questions is how could you find these people within your organization? And I liked, someone earlier said they use hashtags. So could you use those hashtags or your pillars or whatever your words are in the system to help figure out who's using them the most and then dig into that data to find those people to ask to be mentors. Embedding it in, and I won't talk much to these, embedding it into leadership training, more points for champions. I love that idea. Maybe badges, electronic badges that show, and then I don't know who put this, but I'm guessing like badges to show that they are a champion, that they are a mentor maybe. Re-onboarding, and then senior leadership engagement.
Awesome. That's a great list. And I love that you have the re-onboarding. And that is one thing as I work on onboarding strategies with clients is we do so many special things to get them engaged and excited about the culture. And then we assume that it's staying top of mind. We need to, every now and then, reinvigorate them around what it means to be here, who we are as a company, get them excited again. All right. Any questions or last thoughts on this before we transition over? Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, well, and we could do a fun little exercise here and do a little bit of recognition. So, like, did anyone hear a particularly great idea or something that they want to, like, take home? They're like, oh, yes, I learned that from Zillow or Lockheed or whatever it was today. Any? Yeah.
I really liked the point for the welcome recognition. It says award points and buddy. And so like I love the buddy idea to kind of help like welcome them to the company. You get some points or coins and then you get an email, but then like linking them to somebody, a resource within the company. I really like that. It's not a mentor, but it's a buddy. Yeah. And so like you may not feel comfortable asking your managers things when you're new. So having that buddy there, I really like that.
It's huge.
Then give the buddy some points. Yeah. Love it. Yeah.
Susan had they do a great thing where the first 10 days they send an email saying like, welcome, here's Awardco, this is how you use it, and then they do it again at 90 days. So instead of like during the onboarding when everything is so overwhelming, they get that email in 10 days and then the 90 days.
Awesome. It's great practice.
Yeah. Everyone knows, when you onboard, you get like the packet this thick and half of it is gone by, because you're also trying to remember everyone's names. Yeah, love it. Anyone else? Yeah.
I just love the idea of thinking through that mentor and nurture stage, because I feel like that's an area we tend to forget, either because we just assume that that population is going to just do what they're doing because they're happy doing that. Or they're just, it's easier to focus on early career, which is where we're all seeing people kind of run, right? So I think just putting some additional emphasis there is such an important thing that I don't know that I've really sat down and thought about.
Awesome. You can't manage it if you don't measure it, so put it on the thing. Yeah, I love that. Anyone else? Any other ideas? Yeah.
This slide right here really made me think about, we do like a year-end review on recognition. We do quarterly reports, then we do a year-end review. So I think, and Christina does the reports for me, when we do our year-end review, I think we should think about the journey and show where recognition plays in to that journey for employees, because we do touch every one of these. Yeah.
Christina taking notes. Amazing. Yeah, I love that, right? Like just embed that in culture, make that like something that, again, you measure.
Well, because I think like the new joiner team might not think recognition is helping them. Other places in the journey, we think about it because we are responsible for recognition or engagement, but those folks may not be reaching out to us to say, hey, if you do this, it's going to help me. That shared goal. Right?
Yeah.
So I think if we can show them, demonstrate it, that would be positive.
Awesome. Any other? Yeah.
I really like the idea of the badges. I just feel like it adds like a layer of gamification to it. So, it encourages people to want to become a culture champion or a recognition champion. And then once you have that badge, maybe other people will see it and be like, oh, well, I wonder what steps they took to get to that level. And then also kind of tying into like service awards where maybe instead of giving somebody like an acrylic number, they could get a badge for how many years of service they have. Kind of like Twitch, almost. I'm a Twitch user. I love the little badges where I've donated so much to this person, or it's just kind of like a call out, and then it makes it, I think it just enhances the culture.
Yeah, I love that too. This is great. Take it away.
Christy shared the idea of a leaderboard, which I think is really smart and simple, and also has a gamification aspect. So just visibility of top departments where there's more recognition happening compared to the rest of the company. Even at an individual level, I think is something I'd consider. So good idea. For sure.
Yeah, I love that. It kind of reminds me actually of the idea of having the CEO on the platform, and it's like, okay, we have the leaderboard, we have the leadership there. Like, this is just ways to signal to all your employees, like, hey, we're taking this seriously. This is actually something that's important to our culture. Love it. Anyone else? Cool. Well, I love all of those ideas that everyone shared and the ones that we just highlighted. You'll know what I'm going to say, though, right? How are you going to measure them, right? So I think the thing that I would love all of you to do, just as you think about like those things that you want to take home, those ideas that other people shared, is okay, great. Take that idea, bring it home, but what's the hypothesis? How are you going to measure it? Is there someplace small you could start to see if that idea is really going to work? Because again, that comes back to our whole theme for today and this whole experience y'all are having is the ROI of measurement, or the ROI of recognition, right? Like, how do we actually tell that these things are going to make a difference, are going to work? So I think we'll move to, so as we sort of move to our conclusion here, I think there's, as managers of culture, as people who are responsible for an organization's culture, for their employees' engagement, development, we're kind of in the middle of two simultaneous revolutions, right? There's a revolution in the way that people are engaging and relating to their work. We talk so much about this. There are massive shifts across the labor force from a macroeconomic level down to the most personal, I feel burned out or I feel really engaged. Right? There are huge transformations happening across the board in the labor market, and that makes our jobs really challenging. Like, how do you navigate that across global workforces, thousands of people, or even, your own small individual team? But at the same time, we've got unprecedented challenges, huge changes, lots of stuff making our jobs hard. At the same time, there's that second revolution, and that's the revolution in analytics, right? More so than ever before in history, we are able to actually measure things. We're able to actually get data, right? One of the benefits of increasingly digitized work is that data is just everywhere. And what that means is that more so than ever before, you can tailor and target specific initiatives, ideas, remedies to specific goals that you might have, and then see if it actually works. So bringing those two together, right? We've got a revolution that's making our jobs really hard, and then we've got a revolution that makes our jobs in some ways like more impactful than ever, right? We can actually see where we make a difference. So I think that's just a really cool way to think about this sort of moment in the industry we all work in, right? This is a time where, yes, we're facing things that are difficult to solve. How do you overcome the Great Resignation as a company? But at the same time, suddenly you can say, hey, well, we did this specific thing and it worked. We had this hypothesis and it was validated. So now let's expand, let's build on that, let's target our interventions. And it's it's really cool to sort of live at the intersection of those two moments. So I'll turn it over to Deb, but thank you all so much.
And I'll be quick just to say, when we first came here and we kicked off, we said our goal was to give you a little bit more of a deep look at measurement itself, to think a little bit differently about how we look at recognition and what we can solve for with recognition, and for you all to get a chance to learn from each other. So Ben and I are deeply hopeful that you got at least one of those today. And we just want to say how much we enjoy being here with you, and a huge thank you to our partners and friends at Awardco for bringing us in. This has been a huge pleasure for us. So thank you. I hope you have a great rest of your time here. And if you ever need to reach out or any more questions come up, then reach out to Paige at Awardco and she'll get in touch. Thank you so much.